FOS TV is brought to you by the Lion's Den. The Den always has been and always will be about enjoying family and friends in an environment steeped in Happy Valley tradition. So come back to the Den, the perfect place to recall old memories while creating new ones.
Mark Brennan of Fight on State here with another Joe Paterno press conference wrap. I'm joined this week by Genaro Armas of the Associated Press. You could tell he's with the AP because he's wearing a tie. I mean, that's you're representing, Genaro.
We're the blue and white today. I'm sorry,
The black and blue.
The black and blue, anyway, yeah, for a big Iowa game, a physical Iowa game. So.
Yeah, but anyway, Genaro, you know, you've been to a lot of these press conferences over the last however many years. How many years have you been on the beat now?
This would be season 6.
Yeah. So in 6 years, had you ever seen Joe kind of that jovial and interactive and everything?
Now, this has been probably the most giddy I've seen him in quite a while. He seems to be over some of the physical ailments he had. From the Davon Smith hit in the preseason, walking fine without a cane. It looks like. Says he wants to be on the sideline for the whole game this week. So yeah, he's in a pretty good mood considering where the offense is, I guess, right now.
Yeah, I mean, it was unbelievable. He was cracking jokes about any number of things. One reporter called in and asked a long-winded question. Bernard Fernandez of the Philadelphia Inquirer, who's known for asking long questions, a long question about the quarterback situation, and Joe basically said, hey, this is only a 30-minute press conference, and it wasn't really a mean-spirited thing. He was laughing about it. I mean, you went to ask him a question, and he was still joking about something else. Mm-hmm. And I know we'll get to some of the nuts and bolts of what Joe had to say today, but I was kind of blown away by how good he looked and sounded, and how just in a great mood he was.
Yeah. Again, considering especially where this team is, obviously the defense is playing well, yeah. But there are clearly problems with the offense still after just a 6-point win against Indiana. 4 points. Sorry, they left a lot of points on the board there. Yeah, but I don't know if it's maybe a head game where he's trying to get the pressure off the team, but whatever the reason, he's in a pretty good mood.
One thing we realized during the press conference, Sue Paterno was up top in the recruiting line, so maybe he was just trying to be in a good mood. Maybe his wife got on him and said, stop snapping at people so much. I don't know about that. But anyway, hey, let's get to the meat of the press conference. Joe was asked frequently, again, about the quarterback situation. I didn't get any new answers out of it, did you?
No, not at all. I mean, he's sticking with the game plan. Looks like he's sticking with the game plan he's had for the last 6 weeks. Someone brought up to him McGloin's comments from post-game against Indiana, how he was frustrated about not starting. Joe said he was surprised by that, but again, doesn't really seem to be affecting his decision or where he's going forward. So looks like another 2 quarterback tandem this week.
Yeah, one thing that he said, he doesn't think the quarterback situation is an issue. I don't know. I mean, I think if you look at it from a pure statistical standpoint, sure, maybe some of the other issues with the turnovers, the penalties, that sort of thing, maybe those are bigger issues, but I think it's fair to ask, and he was asked, but he kind of danced around it, whether having 2 quarterbacks, hurts the continuity, and maybe, you don't have that rhythm and that flow. Other things he talked about today, asked about the long losing streak to Iowa. Penn State's lost how many is it now?
It's 8 of 9.
Yeah, 8 of 9 to Iowa, which is pretty serious stuff. Penn State's had some very good teams, obviously lost some crushing games to Iowa. It sounds as if he's saying, hey, Iowa's usually a pretty good football team and just well coached. I don't know what you were getting out of that.
Yeah, again, sort of similar to the rest of the news conference, trying to either downplay it or just not make as much light about it. But he brought up the 24-23 win for Iowa a couple years ago. He brought up some of the special teams issues. But again, nothing really stuck out for me with Joe about any specific problems Penn State has had, he thinks that has had with the Hawkeyes.
Let's get to some personnel. He was asked if Mike Farrell would start at tackle. Farrell replaced Chima Okola in the Indiana game. It sounds to me as if Chima will be back in the starting lineup. He attributed Chima's the reason they took him out, not only because he jumped offside in the key spot, but he said he's been playing injured. He said he thinks Chima could be one of the better tackles they've had. That's pretty strong praise given the way this offensive line has struggled in a running game. I mean, they've done a good job protecting the quarterback, but it sounds like Chima's going to be the guy.
Yeah, again, considering some of the false start and the offsides penalties they've had, especially with Chima over the last 2-3 weeks, maybe it's a little surprising. But Joe tends to stick with the seniors, too, and wants to give Chima every chance to stay with that job.
Another piece of good news if you're a Penn State fan, Stephon Green back in the mix. Joe was actually asked about Stephon Morris. I think he misread the question. Stephon Green kind of had been in the doghouse for a variety of off-field things, but he's back in the mix. Joe said he's running second and third team. I think that's important. I mean, in Silas Red, you clearly have, I think, a featured running back. Dukes has done some good things off the bench, but I think it's good to have that change of pace guy, Stephon Green, coming on. He's a veteran guy, and I think he could do some good things for you now that the Big Ten's here.
Yeah, that, and maybe they'll have Brandon Beecham back this week too, so they might get their full complement of running backs back for Iowa. Also, I guess on the personnel front, Joe mentioned that Morris seems to be fine for this week. Says that Lynn is doubtful. Seems to be some questions. Maybe he'll be back this week, maybe not. But I guess if you're on the injury front, if you're a Penn State fan, there's relatively good news on that end.
Yeah, and I think with Danton Lynn, clearly they're going to err on the side of caution there. They said he has to go in for another test concussion-wise tomorrow, which would be Wednesday, depending on when you're viewing this. I'll be surprised if he plays, but I think they should be in pretty good shape because they do have Morris, Powell, the Amos kid kind of has been stepping up. So I think they'll be okay. I'll be surprised if they rush him back. Joe was asked about Curtis Drake, who's played in the game and then not played, then played and then not played. And this was the first time he really got into the fact that he thinks Drake has to do a better job academically. He said Drake's not in any academic trouble, but he's one of these guys who can be a really strong leader for them, and it sounds like he doesn't want to risk sending a bad message. And Drake is a guy who's been able to do some good things when healthy.
And it sort of goes along lines with Joe's MO of if he thinks a guy has a potential, he's really going to ride that kid too.
Yeah.
It sounds like he's doing that with Drake as well, because we know what the potential he has in the field with where he can line up. Maybe he can do some things that maybe Derek Williams did when he was here. So reading between the tea leaves, it sounds like that's something that Joe is trying to do with Drake, on top of the fact that they're also being cautious with his injury.
Yeah, Joe also talked about Anthony Farah, what a good job he's been doing. I asked him specifically, what does it mean to see a kid bounce back from off-field troubles like that? He at first made on, he didn't understand what I was talking about. Then he kind of was, he who has not without sin cast the first stone. But I think he genuinely is happy to see the way that Farah's bounced back, because clearly he has been a huge boost to the special teams.
Yeah, definitely. And, talking to Anthony today too, he seems to have accepted, obviously, his role, but accepted his punishment in relative grace. And it's really obviously solidified at least the kicking game and the punting, the kick game overall for Penn State.
Yeah, the Penn State players were asked a little bit about the atmosphere out at Iowa last year. Apparently, it was a little bit crazy, and some things were said from fans and that sort of thing. And what Derek Moy and Devin Still were both getting at, they're expecting a great crowd for Penn State. They think that could be really helpful in ending this streak of frustration.
Yeah, definitely, and especially after some people have already referenced Glenn Carson's comments today in interviews. He was very animated about the response that Penn State players got from the sideline last week, maybe half-jokingly calling Iowa a wrestling school and Penn State a football school. We'll see what kind of bulletin board material that provides the Hawkeyes, but at the very least, it was a good departure from sort of some of the staid, reserved comments you get from Penn State players.
Yeah, I don't know about bulletin board, but it's definitely message board material. It's all over our site already. So, Genaro, as you come out of this press conference, what's your lead? I mean, what are you have to wrap this thing up for the AP? What is kind of the key thing that you're going to write about, and some of the key points that you'll mention along the way?
Well, I think today we'll write about sort of the Iowa hex and sort of the hold that Iowa's had on this team. For these group of seniors, Moy and Still, they haven't beaten Iowa. This is their last chance. Beyond that, there was a lot of questions about the quarterback situation, but overall, nothing really new. Despite what Burgoyne has said this week after the Indiana game, looks like Joe's sticking with the game plan. And overall, I think special teams will be a theme this week too, with Farah coming back. Farah stabilizing the kicking game. But also those special teams highlights or lowlights if you're a Penn State fan that have sort of plagued the Nittany Lions in the recent years against the Hawkeyes.
So we're here with Genaro Armas of the AP. You can read Genaro's stuff at newspapers across the state and nation, obviously on websites just about everywhere. When you see an AP story at a state college, even if it doesn't have your byline on, that's basically you, right?
Typically. We have I have stringers here too, students who help out as well, but it's primarily apparently myself. It's a one-man gang, unfortunately.
So you may not have seen a lot of his face, but we're here to introduce you to the beat, folks, and we're happy that you were able to join us. They're lining the field and stuff here at Beaver Stadium, so it's actually a little noisy, but that's kind of the way we roll here at Fight on State TV. This is the Mark Brennan for Genaro Armas wrapping up the Joe Paterno press conference. Thanks for joining us, everybody, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Mark.
No problem. That was great. Thanks.